Here in Nairobi, I can tell you, Bobu Owino, Tim Wanyonyi are completely distraught. They do not even have a nomination process in ODM to decide who is the most popular ODM candidate. Baba amesema ni Sakaja. How can you run a political party like, what kind of president would this man be? Raila Odinga used to be a devoted multi-party Democrat, so that you allow people to make a choice through the ballot. Even in Moi's oldest days and Kanu's worst days, Moi would bring Morolongo. At least they line up. This guy just speaks at the bombers of Kenya and says, this will be the next governor. Odinga is not changing. He's doing that now. Now that he has lost the African Union, what more will he do to put his hand on the scale of many things, even in an undemocratic way, including the formation and the constitution of the IBC? Kenyans are going to struggle to get an independent, credible, independent electoral commission. Coming to the AU elections, there can be no justification that in order to save their dwindling 2027 political fortunes, William Ruto and Raila Odinga concoct and sell to the Kenyan people that Baba is the Messiah of Africa. And therefore, if he goes to Africa, everything will be as fine since the invention of chewing gum. In other words, these people deceived and cheated the Kenyan people to own and believe that Odinga's agenda in Africa was for Africa. Odinga's agenda for Africa was to salvage the UDA regime of William Ruto, to legitimize it by taking a position that will make his supporters galvanize towards the collapsing regime of William Ruto. Thank God it is the presidents of Africa and not the manipulation of Odinga that came to the scales, what I would like to call as the Shylock scales, as Shakespeare said. So look, this was a deceptive campaign by two men of deception. They have, the king is naked. They went to the theater of the world, ill-prepared, poor diplomatic planning, poor diplomatic strategy. You cannot have a country like Kenya. Since 1963, when the OAU began, Kenya has pursued a system of non-alignment. And here, in the first few months of Ruto's government, he was sitting at the Oval Office, purporting and displaying America's blue-eyed boy status, coming to this country and celebrating that he's now a non-NATO ally of the U.S. And the U.S. is a fundamental supporter of Israel. Of course, the OIC and all the Arab states were completely against the candidature of Kenya and Odinga. And of course, after that, you have a situation where the policy of Kenya is to go to Haiti and support Haitians when we have problems in Southern Sudan, problems even in our neighbor here at DRC. The Kenyan foreign policy is a foreign policy that is Ruto-driven without the proper consideration of the interests, the geopolitical interests, not just of Kenya, but of the region and the world, particularly on the issue of human rights violations. So when you have a police force in Kenya that can murder people and walk in Subarus and number plate-less cars and masks, and then you say that you are sending policemen to Haiti to save gangs there, it is every leader in Africa can see that what Kenya is doing is cashing in on the bloodshed in Haiti, and yet using those funds to kill its own citizens. Now, let me for now conclude by saying this, that I have been praying that Raila Odinga be cut to size. I've been praying that Raila Odinga and Ruto become exposed before this IBC is set up, because I know that's their next plan, to be able to pack the IBC, deny Kenyans ID cards in order to continue to manipulate themselves into power. I will say at the beginning of my comments that all these shenanigans that have been the AU elections have been a precursor for 2027. They have fallen on their sword. This was not about Africa. It was not about Odinga. It was about Ruto's re-election. I condemn their attempt to hoodwink Kenyans. I call it for what it is, a political fraud. And the African presidents have made me proud because they told them to their face that, no, we are not boarding.
Yeah, but the question is, had he won, then will you be still holding the same sentiments? Because I think also this was a good position for Kenya to try and in the public arena and in international scene try and also redeem its image that you quite movingly talked about it being really battered as well. Right.
If you just look at the sub-Saharan Africa or the Horn of Africa coming downward, anything that spreads from DRC, Sudan, Southern Sudan is unstable. Sudan itself is still not, settled down. You've got Somalia on the other side. Then the DRC erupts. And the involvement of Rwanda and, that itself is very frightening. It can create the most unstable region if you look geographically. So there might have been a discussion that if now you put this in the hands of a player in that region who can be, as you say, truly a friend of Kagame, this may unsettle not just that particular war, but that whole region and the African policy of trying to get Africa in the world order, getting us to the UN, getting us to the G7. And I think the presidents of the South may have decided that it's too risky to put it in the hands of Odinga. Access him so that he was able to stay away. So even going to Africa Union would have allowed him to run away from some of the wars. But now he's here. There are many, many wars, including within ODM, which has been torn right in the middle as to those who support them being in government, those who do not support. Here in Nairobi, I can tell you, Bobu Owino, Tim Wanyonyi are completely distraught. They do not even have a nomination process in ODM to decide who is the most popular ODM candidate. Baba amesema ni Sakaja. How can you run a political party like, what kind of president would this man be? Raila Odinga used to be a devoted multi-party Democrat, so that you allow people to make a choice through the ballot. Even in Moi's oldest days and Kanu's worst days, Moi would bring Morolongo, or at least say line up. This guy just speaks at the bombers of Kenya and says this will be the next governor. Anyway, I don't want to speak about Nairobi so that it looks like I'm drawing attention to myself. But it's just the recent utterances that shows you Odinga is not changing. He's doing that now. Now that he has lost the African Union, what more will he do to put his hand on the scale of many things, even in an undemocratic way, including the formation and the constitution of the IBC? Because the moment Ruto and Odinga, with the numbers in parliament, are on one side, Kenyans are going to struggle to get an independent, credible, independent electoral commission. And I don't want to hog space because there are so many people to come. But if you ask me what the next elections will be, Odinga will dominate. In fact, the deputy president, Kindiki, will have no space whatsoever. And therefore, even the fact that there will be a running mate, it will not be Kindiki. The Odinga complication in Kenya Kwanza is beyond any measure. Ruto has created a giant he will come to regret. All the books I've read in politics, from the art of war to the 48 rules of power, he has created a co-president called Odinga. And Ruto is going to come to regret the day he created Baba. Because, my God, Baba will turn not just on him, but will put his skills on things that Ruto cannot do anything about. So to my view and my understanding of political science, Odinga and Ruto marriage will not end well. Come 2027, a lot of blood will be split there, and it's going to be very, very ugly indeed.
Thank you.